"22-year-old pilot, Sergeant Edward John Morley of the Australian Air Force, he was injured. He survived the crash. The 22-year-old flight engineer, Sidney Garrett, Sergeant Sidney Garrett of the Royal Air Force, he was killed. The 22-year-old navigator, Flying Officer George Harrison of the Australian Air Force, he was killed. The 30-year-old bomb aimer, Sergeant Harry Mayle of the Royal Air Force, Volunteer Reserve, he was killed. The 21-year-old wireless operator, Sergeant John Dolby of the Australian Air Force, was injured. The 24-year-old rear gunner, Sergeant James Gibbons of the Royal Canadian Air Force, was killed. And the 22-year-old mid-upper gunner, Sergeant Ian Fraser of the Royal Canadian Air Force, was injured.
Where are we today then, folks? Well, we are at the unveiling of this thing here behind me. This is going to be the sculpture of Lancaster VNN. This is going to grace the A46 just north of Newark, south of Lincoln. If you drive past there at the moment, all you're going to see is a wind turbine, a giant wind turbine. But behind the wind turbine, there's some pieces of metal sticking up, which is the frame that this thing is going to sit on. It is colossal. It makes you wonder whether that frame is going to be strong enough to actually hold it up. It is absolutely colossal. The thing is vast, isn't it? The thing is absolutely vast. And a big shout out to this company, Timmins Engineering. These are the guys that have put all this together. These are the guys that have forked out and actually put the labour in to actually put this thing together. I'll find out more about it in a little while. I'll try and get Ken Sadler, who is he's the chair of the board of directors for the Bomber Command Gateway Trust, who is putting this thing together for us to enjoy into the future. This is going to be bigger when it's erected. This is going to be bigger than the Angel of the North. It's going to look absolutely fantastic. It's such an exciting project, and I'm so privileged because I'm the only motor vlogger that is covering this. The press are here. There's going to be some celebrities. I don't know who that's going to be. Could even be a certain Guy Martin. Guy Martin's involved in this as part of the fundraising effort for it. But yeah, big shout out to all the companies involved. I did put this on my last video. I put a list of all of the companies that were involved in the project. If you want to check that out, it's just the On Freedom's Wings video. Made a bit of a mistake because the last time I filmed it, the interview that I did with Ken Sadler, I'd got the camera in the wrong setting. So it's a bit grainy, but you still get the gist of the conversation that we had together. But yeah, big shout out to Timmins for putting this together, but also putting today together as well for us all to come and witness the unveiling of such a magnificent structure. So folks, this is Ken Sadler.
Again?
Ken, yeah, again. Just remind us what you do, Ken. What is your role?
I'm the chairman of the trust building this, which is on Freedom's Wings, a full-size representation of a Lancaster bomber to be sighted on the A46 as you come into Lincolnshire as a bit of a landmark and gate guard to the county.
Cool. So, in terms of timeline, whereabouts are we with actually getting the sculpture to site now?
When we have to clean this and paint it, then we've got to flesh it out with the ribs. You can see a rib on the front there. Then we need to fabricate the cladding, but we're going to clad it in the air. But we've got to put the ribs on first, because if we put the cladding on, it makes it too heavy. There's a lot of wind load, so we're going to put the ribs on now, take it to site, clad it, and lift it in place.
I mean, what next is happening from here? Is it going to get taken apart again?
Yeah, it'll be taken apart again tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll be bead blasting it and painting it to protect it from winter, and we're going to crack on with forming the ribs.
Okay, cool. And in terms of finance, how far are you from?
We've got the material for the ribs.
Yeah.
We need to raise a bit more money to pay for the fabrication of the ribs.
Yeah.
And then we need to buy the cladding materials. So, I mean, it's a £3 or £4 million project, and if I said that we need 50,000 to buy the remaining materials, hopefully we can get it done for that. But there's always things to pay for in terms of extra labour and what have you.
Yeah.
So, but 50 to 100 will have it finished.
Okay, cool. And with regard to taking it to site, do you have a date in mind?
Hopefully next year.
Hopefully next year.
We're going to work on the ribs over the winter. Hopefully we'll have it taken to the site and do the cladding in the spring. We can't lift it into place in the winter because the ground's too soft. It needs to be really, really good weather. So I'm hoping, I don't know, late on next year. But a lot can go wrong. I've been saying that for 7 years.
Yeah.
But we've now got to the point where you can see a finished structure. Yeah. And so the whole thing could accelerate a bit.
The actual process of putting it together. I mean, that's going to be quite a long job, isn't it? It's not going to be that quick.
No. There's an awful lot of work to do between now and then, and you can see how big it is. One of our major problems at the moment is finding somewhere to store it indoors.
Right.
So that's what we're busy looking for.
Yeah.
Because in a day like today, fantastic, but it's not always like this, is it?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Next question with regard to being on site: would it be possible for me to come down at certain points and shoot some video, have a chat with some people about how things are going? Cool, excellent. That's brilliant. Ken, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right, on Freedom's Wings, we've got this huge statue landmark piece that's going to be appearing very, very shortly. And it is a huge piece of metal chunks, and it's got an image that you'll all see from the A46. But if I can just share with you a little passion I've got for this model that's being created, and this is a true story from the night of the 18th to 19th of September 1942. The position of our Lancaster bomber is going to be at the side of the old RAF Swinderby. RAF Swinderby is now no more, but if you travel north from Newark to Lincoln, RAF Swinderby was on your right-hand side. For those that are local, you will already see that there are stanchions out the ground sitting waiting for something like this to be attached to it. So RAF Swinderby, a brief history, it opened as a Bomber Command airfield in 1940. And it was initially the home to 2 Polish squadrons, and then it was the home to 50 Squadron. The new Lancaster bomber, they arrived in June of 1942. And that was after the concrete runways had been put up at Swinderby to take the weight. And 50 Squadron's history is illustrious. Really, really lots and lots of stories. You can go online and hear their escapades. But of 50 Squadron, 176 aircraft of that squadron were lost during the war. Not all of those aircraft were Lancasters, but a Lancaster bomber traditionally had a crew of 7, and 176 aircraft lost. You can start to put the sums together. that this fabulous landmark piece, there's actually a story behind every single aircraft that didn't make it back. And that's this one mission that took place on 18th to 19th of September in 1942. And the aircraft we're looking at is VNN. VN was the squadron number, N was the aeroplane number within that, so they all had different third letters, but VN, then you knew at a distance which aeroplane was which. There were two aircraft that took off. VNN, when it was first photographed, that is an original picture of VNN. It was the most used photograph of a Lancaster bomber by the RAF during the war. This photograph was taken at RAF Scampton, which is about 6 minutes down the road, and from a publicity and PR the RAF used. So actually VNN was the most publicised Lancaster bomber in print format. It was tasked with one other aircraft to go and do some gardening. In the records it's down there as gardening. Gardening for the RAF meant dropping mines. So VNN, our aircraft of the two, set off at 7:15 and we know that it arrived back in the area at 1:55. It was flying at a height of 400 to 800 feet to get the right angle, but also, importantly, the speed, 180 miles an hour. And I said to you what time it set off, that was after sunset. So it's now doing 180 miles an hour, low, across the fjords area, laying mines, whilst at the same time being shot at by all the defences. The partner aircraft we know landed at Swinderby at 1:41 in the morning with a very badly damaged tail fin. VNN arrived some 15 minutes later, and the reason being that had also been struck and damaged, and one of its port engines wasn't serviceable. As it made its final approach, angling in to land at Swinderby, the pilot was instructed to circle the runway again to allow another airplane to come in which was more stricken. And we know with its flight path that VNN would have flown directly over where our site is, up on the right-hand side of the A46. But the windy conditions that night were just a little bit too much for the damaged Lancaster, and on the final approach as it came round, it lost another one of its engines, which quickly veered the aircraft to the right, where it then crashed into Thirlby Top Wood, just short of the runway, and that was at 5 minutes to 2 o'clock that morning. Now, the crew of a Lancaster, for those that aren't aware, consists of a pilot, a flight engineer, a navigator, wireless operator, the rear gunner, mid-upper gunner, and also the bomb aimer, but the bomb aimer also doubled up as the front gunner. So we have the crew detailed, all their rank and their names. Nothing else at that stage, no nationalities, just the information that they needed to get the flight up there. Fortunately, because it was low on fuel, because it had already done its mission, it was coming in for the final approach. It was very, very low speed. When it crashed into the woods, we have the RAF record of the crew, their rank, their position, and more importantly, what happened as a result of the crash. So of the 7 crew, 22-year-old pilot, Sergeant Edward John Morley of the Australian Air Force, he was injured. He survived the crash. The 22-year-old flight engineer, Sidney Garrett, Sergeant Sidney Garrett of the Royal Air Force, he was killed. The 22-year-old navigator, Flying Officer George Harrison of the Australian Air Force, he was killed. The 30-year-old bomb aimer, Sergeant Harry Mayle of the Royal Air Force, Volunteer Reserve, he was killed. The 21-year-old wireless operator, Sergeant John Dolby of the Australian Air Force, was injured. The 24-year-old rear gunner, Sergeant James Gibbons of the Royal Canadian Air Force, was killed. And the 22-year-old mid-upper gunner, Sergeant Ian Fraser of the Royal Canadian Air Force, was injured. So it just shows it wasn't just an RAF, just 7 Englishmen. This was a proper multinational force. So those that lost their lives on that night, there were four. They were just four of the 55,573 of bomber commands that were killed during World War II. And that is a massive number, but it's even more shocking is the fact that this represented more than half of the men and women who volunteered. But On Freedom's Wings isn't just a memorial to any particular people, it is to the air crew across all of the 6 years of the war. And it is meant to provide a permanent reminder of anybody that travels from Nottinghamshire into Lincolnshire. For those that are local, Lincolnshire is well known as Bomber County. You don't talk to anybody in Lincolnshire without them mentioning Bomber County. Such is the heritage and their proud heritage of what happened. So what we are creating though is a Lancaster bomber, which on its side, when it's up there, will be exactly the same measurements as a Lancaster bomber.
Brilliant, what a fantastic event. What a jammy sod I am, aren't I, getting invited to this. Yeah, this is ticket only. It's been organised actually through Eventbrite. That's where my ticket came from anyway. But Ken, who I interviewed earlier, asked me if I would like to attend after interviewing him last year. Would I? That's not even its full size yet. It's got to have wingtips put on there. Then it's got to have all those little arch bits put on the top to hold the bodywork up. And the engines put on. It's going to be gigantic. So what I will be doing in the future is going to site and trying to bring you some regular updates as to where they are with the project, how far it's got. So subscribe, watch this space. This is exciting, folks. This is the biggest thing happening in the East Midlands at the moment. And a lot of people just don't know about it at all, which is a crying shame. You can donate, and you know your money is going into that. Your money is going into that. So you will be able to drive past that or come and see it, knowing that you've contributed to something that is magnificent and is going to be here for eons. Hopefully, you know, the next 100, 150 years. Let's hope. And it's, you know, it is a memorial. It will be a memorial to the men who lost their lives that night. But yeah, just get your hands in your pockets. Just give them some cash, and let's get this project finished. I knew you wouldn't know where I was talking about. If I said the statue was at Norton Disney, the sculpture was at Norton Disney, you wouldn't know where I was talking about. Now, if I turn the camera around, there is a massive landmark apart from the frame that the aircraft is going to sit on. There's another massive landmark. Here it is. Is that big enough? Is that big enough for you? Now, this is just north of the Brough rest area on the way to Lincoln. If you're coming from Newark, you will see that. Behind it, over there, you will see that. And you can see it from the road quite easily. Let's zoom in a bit. There it is. So the sculpture is going to sit on that frame, and if you watch the video that I did, the On Freedom's Wings video that I did with Ken, we did our interview right in front of that. So now you know where it is, you can look out for it when you come in past. It's just going to look, I keep saying it's going to look absolutely stunning, isn't it? On that skyline in Lincolnshire, Bomber County, and this is a gateway to Lincolnshire. There's nothing else around that's going to be like this. Bigger than the Angel of the North. It's going to stand there like a beacon to Bomber County, to the men who lost their lives, to Bomber Command. It's just going to be epic. It's just going to be epic. And well done to Ken and all the volunteers, you know, from all the companies who've given up their spare time to create this project. And it's going to be there. And there is going to be a car park. I don't know where that's going to be. I don't know whether it's going to be down here and then there will be a walk up to it. But the poppies, if you look there on the... Let's zoom you in again. So if you see the structure there, then the land, the rough land just to the right of it along that strip, that's where the poppies are. So that's all going to be poppies. That's already been planted. And I'm so proud to be, you know, a tiny part of it. If I can, you know, give them any publicity at all, to get people interested in it, to donate a bit of cash, you know, 55,000, that's all we're looking for now. We, not we, them. That's all they're looking for to get this finished. So get your hands in your pockets, give them a fiver, a couple of quid, whatever. You know, you can do it through the Bomber County Trust website. I will put the details on the screen now. Again, in fact, I'll have them on the screen all the way through, and therefore you can go to it at any point. No excuse for forgetting it. You can go to it at any point and you can just give them a couple of quid. Give them a couple of quid. Don't give it me anymore. Give it to that project, because that's going to be awesome. Right, I'm heading off to get a coffee and heading home. It's been an awesome day. I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks for coming with me today to this exclusive event. And I keep saying it, I feel so privileged and so thankful to Ken for inviting me along today. I was the only motovlogger there. There was camera crews everywhere today. And there's me with my little Osmo Action and my phone, just shooting a bit of footage and making a little video out of it for you guys. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.